don't be too scared at failing. Like if you're not failing, you're not really doing research. There's no direct way to approach a target or to find a vulnerability. You really got to just give it a go. Keep being persistent with your work. Think outside of the box. Maybe the way that you approach it is different than someone else, and that will allow you to get different attack surface or different types of bugs that are actually interesting and maybe someone missed, but you actually found it. So be comfortable with failing. Make sure you do it for a long time, and eventually you'll start getting results. A lot of people just don't get bounty or find anything interesting because they just give up a little bit too early. I definitely see this a lot in the industry. A lot of people message me and they freak out how I can find so many bugs so quickly, but they don't really see all the fails I do, all the times that I got to keep pushing. A lot of people suffer from feeling down or not worthy enough, or they don't have the capability, but most of the time they're just giving up a little bit too early. And also collaborating with other researchers might give you enough to actually get the bounty that you want. One thing I wish I did more and was better at, even today, is to take notes when I do my research. So many times I found really interesting bugs, but I haven't found how to actually exploit them or to trigger them, and I actually just forget about them. And even later on, they might be actually valuable and they might be exploitable because maybe there's other changes, maybe they've patched other bugs in front of it and now you can reach it. So if you take really good notes and then you revisit at a later stage, maybe after a patch Tuesday, you might be surprised that now they're actually a vulnerability and now they're valid for bounty. So it's always good to take really good notes and to do it over a long period of time. Some researchers that aren't really sure on where they should focus, one thing I would recommend is something that they're just familiar with on a day-to-day basis. Maybe they use it part of their workflow or the stuff that they do on a day-to-day basis. Just because you're familiar there, maybe you'll reduce some of the time that it takes to understand the software or the stack or how it works, or how maybe a victim might fall to a vulnerability, because you would already know how that product gets used. And if you're kind of already interested, or maybe the environment's already half set up because it's already on your machine, it might be a good way to just jump onto that instead of going through the setup stage and that, and then by then maybe you'll lose motivation. So if you already have it installed, ready to go, you can quickly start testing, and this might reduce that potential window where you might lose motivation or getting around to actually doing the testing. So if you already have it available to you, a lot of people use it, it might be a good pick to go for that. Or maybe what everyone's currently talking about at the conferences, you can get that fresh knowledge and then you can try put it into practice, look for variants. Stuff like this is also a good thing to consider when you're looking at a new target or getting into to a bug bounty like MSRC.
Tips and tricks for other researchers how to be successful in this. So first of all, it's a hard work. So it's not like in the movies. So you do that and that's it. It's a hard work, and it helps if you have what I call a researcher mindset. So kind of in academic background helps in that. So you kind of have your hypothesis, you build your environment, you test that hypothesis, and then you have result. So that kind of systematic way to do things. And also it means that you need to be persistent. So even though that you don't get result now, maybe you just need to do something differently. And again, the researcher mindset helps on that. And then what have always helped me is that collaborate with other researchers, go to conferences, talk with people, have a beer or two with them, and that kind of thing. So those have helped me a lot.
I mean, my advice for other security researchers would be, that's a big question. As someone who never really thought of themselves as a security researcher necessarily, for people that want to get into it, I'd say don't let yourself be the thing that stops you, right? Working more in the defender area, I never really thought of myself as a researcher or thought of trying to be a researcher. It felt very daunting. Personally, I think my advice is to just go for it. If you have an idea, if you think there's something that's interesting to research, don't let yourself be the thing that stops you. I wish I knew to have more, I'd say, faith or confidence in myself when I got started in security research. And what I mean there is just, I have a lot of imposter syndrome, even having been in the industry for a long time. But that fear about reaching out to others, fear that, maybe you think you're not somebody, so the somebodies that you know or look up to won't help you. And that's where I found there's so many people you can reach out to who are more than happy to help bring other researchers into the fold. You'll be surprised in how generous other researchers can be in working and collaborating and helping you achieve.
This is something that has worked for me a lot. So I keep a lot of logs, like from every activity, like network captures, the Burp Suite captures, like people keep the disk backups, any service logs that are generated when I do some activity. And based on that, I have my own snapshot of what a service used to look like at some point in time. And based on that, I can also find out whether there are any new features being added that may be susceptible to some sort of issue, right? It may go, any big organization out there may face this. It's not just Azure, right? So my focus has been Azure. That's a different thing. And I also go after a lot of documentation and a lot of self-documented things like these artifacts. And this is something that I feel researchers should, look into. Because let's say, for instance, I presented on SAS tokens recently, right? So SAS tokens are a bunch of URL parameters. Where else can you find them? You can find them in logs as well. So based on that, I was also able to expand my research onto my previous research. So it just, goes on and on and on. So logs always help. That's my final tip for researchers. It just works.
One of the biggest ways I actually learned, like when I was getting into bug bounties and everything, was on HackerOne. They would publicly disclose vulnerabilities that were submitted to other companies. And that was a huge way I learned, because I got to see how other vulnerabilities affected other companies. And then I would kind of repeat that process a little bit, like on Microsoft, and I would try to cater my own research, seeing others' research as well. And there's a whole resource for that now. Like you can go on GitHub and view a huge list of publicly disclosed reports. And some are even really nicely organized, like on vulnerability type or different programs like the Google program, etc. And reading publicly disclosed reports was a big way to help me get into security research. Another way was Amazon books, buying the web application hacker's handbook, stuff like that. Amazon actually has some really good resources and books, or I guess any bookstore would, for actually learning how to do web app stuff, since that's what I mostly do. But a lot of resources like that really helped me kind of get into the hacking scene.
Well, for me, for instance, it was like reading other people's blogs, other researchers. So that's quite nice. And they usually have write-ups. So how did they end up to a solution, how they find that, and so which tool they used. So that was for me, it was the most important thing. And also there are places like HackerOne and Bugcrowd, where also are write-ups about bugs people have found. So that's one place to do that. And then, of course, if you want to go to the deep end, so you could do challenges from Hack the Bugs and that kind of companies. So you just buy a subscription, and you have boxes you can try to penetrate in, and then you also have walkthroughs for those. So that's one way to learn. Yeah.